Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit here, back again with Attack on Titan Season 4. We are on episode 23, and in the last episode, after the rumbling had commenced and the wall came down, Eren had transformed into an abominable ribcage kind of thing, and is essentially slithering his way to the rest of the world to essentially flatten it with his army of colossal wall titans. I'd imagine they're just kind of titled wall titans as opposed to colossals, really. I mean, they look like the colossal titan, but I'd still imagine the colossals actually, it's still a tiny bit bigger than them, only because we saw obviously in the very first episode of the show when, you know, Bertold, he was basically, his head was above the, you know, and he was actually resting his arms on it, so he's got to be still much taller than the wall titans, so we'll just call them wall titans from now on. So yeah, after that had all commenced, there was still some rampaging titans in Shiganshina that were the ones that were called upon by Zeke. So it must have been a case of, you know, Eren just couldn't control them for that specific reason. There was still like a conflict there must have been. So yeah, they were running rampant in Shiganshina. So we had the likes of Jean, Mikasa, Armin, and the new cadets fight off those rampaging titans, along with like Commander Shardis, which was cool to see him back and fighting. And we saw the end of Nile and Pixis officially. Like, you know, you could pretty much tell that once they turned into titans, that was it. They weren't coming back. They weren't going to be one that was able to pick up another titan shift. I just didn't feel like that was ever going to be the case. But they were killed off. So Nile was done in by Gabi, who was actually involved in saving Kaya. So that was a good little scene there. Kind of wrapped up that whole thing. And Gabi's basically paid for the you know, because she killed Sasha. So now that's, you know, being made up. And Armin taking out Pixis there at the end. And we got a nice little sort of callback scene that's like, all of this started basically because Pixis was the one to allow Eren to basically be on their side and help them out in like those first sort of few insane epic episodes of Season 1. So yeah, the episode itself had this tone that like was almost calling back to early like Attack on Titan for me, like Season 1 Attack on Titan almost. And I think it was done on purpose because I don't see, going ahead, I don't know if we'll really see any more pure Titans anymore, like those ones. I know the wall Titans are like they would be technically pure Titans, but like, I mean in terms of like those initial Titans, you know what I mean, the ones that we're so familiar with. I don't see going ahead that we'll ever truly see them again. I know that Connie is taking Falco, right, to his mother, right, who's still like stuck in the house or whatever, to try and change her back. I don't see that going ahead, by the way, but we'll get into that in a second. I don't know if we'll ever see the pure Titans in that way ever again. It almost felt like a kind of like an end to that sort of thing. Like the tone it was setting was like, this is what Attack on Titan has been for so long. Now it's like it's a totally different thing with Eren basically on his way. I don't see how pure Titans are going to come into this anymore, because in order for them to be changed, they have to be injected with the spinal fluid. And as far as I'm aware, I think Zeke is still stuck with Eren, like in the coordinate and a part of that like abomination. I don't think Zeke is like free. So I mean, if that is the case, that's mad, but I don't know, man. I because obviously we haven't seen him since the initial transformation. So I think he's still stuck in there with Eren. So that's insane. But the big thing was all of the unhardening that was done has actually ended up unleashing Annie back into the world, and now she's no longer inside that hardening egg thing that she created all the way back at the end of Season 1, which is insane. So I can't wait. I hope we get to see her in this episode and see what her thoughts are, because a lot of people did actually make a really good point. I was saying like, God, she's going to be so like, you know what I mean? Because like, think about what we knew, like what anyone and people practically knew absolutely nothing about the Titans at this point, all the way back at that time when she hardened herself into that egg. And so much has changed that her coming back into this world is crazy. But somewhat, like, people did actually make good points in the comments and did remind me that because the unhardening was actually done before Eren addressed everyone, she also would have heard what Eren had to say. I mean, don't get me wrong, that still would be a shock. Like, shit, like, you know what I mean? Like, after all that time, things have been so different that, like, you know, it's a lot of information to take on at once. So I'm very much intrigued to see how she's going to feel about the whole situation. And yeah, so I don't think we... oh yeah, some people did actually point out as well that Titans only last 13 years because that is how long Emiya actually had her power before dying. So that was almost like a kind of like a... something that was almost like set in a... Like, it was a set rule from that moment forward. That because that's when she died, that's basically how long it is, and that is it. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. I think we're just going to get into episode 23. So as always, the reaction will be here on YouTube, but if for whatever reason it gets taken down for copyright in the future, I will re-upload this as a discussion only, and a link to the reaction will be in the description below. As always, a link to the full-length reaction to this episode is in the description below as well, so if you do want to watch my full-length reaction to this episode, then the offer is there for you. But yes, nothing else to talk about, so we're going to get into episode 23, see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. That's in Trust as well. Yeah, just like... all of those, like, further inside must be going, what the fuck is going on?
その通りだ。エレン・イェーガーは地獄の民を殺した。だが彼が壁の巨人を呼び起こさなければ、この島のエルディア人は外の奴らに皆殺しにされていた。
There was always going to be people dying because of that, you know. The only way you could have stopped that is by stopping people from living close to the wall, you know. Damn, this is a friend as well. Remember? Fucking, she's fucked off. Oh god, I hope she. No, I need to see her interact. She set that up. She put the footprints leading one way. Wow. She's become weak. Ah, of course she would have. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, of course. The risk that, like, might not be worth taking, but I don't know, man. Oh god. Sunset.
思ったより賢いじゃないヘッジ。うるさい。あんたが街を出るならそれを拒む理由はない。何より地下室であんたの顔を眺める仕事から解放されるしね。これでようやく終わるのね。あんたのくだらない男の愚痴を聞かされるのも。なんでそのこと
She could hear through that.
あんたの話し声とアルミンの声だけが遠くから聞こえて、そうじゃない時はずっと同じ闇の中。世界を滅ぼすってあれ本気で言ってんの？
Yep.
私が兵士になってやった意味ある仕事は死体と瓦礫の後始末。あんたとエレンが暴れた後にね。
Yeah, because
今なら答えてくれる。
Hitch was one of the first people picking people up after
目的のために踏み潰された人々の死体を見て。
the Eren Annie fight.
今日超えれば戦闘員も民間人も区別なく殺していいと教わった。私たちエルディア人の食材と世界を救う使命のため。つまり瓦礫の死体は多少の犠牲だったって言いたいわけ。いや、世界を救うとかどうでもよかった。生まれて間もない時に親に捨てられた。母親の浮気相手がエルディア人だったとかでね。そんな私を収容所で引き取ったのは外国から来たエルディア人の血を持つ男。男の目的は私をマーレの戦士に鍛え上げて自分の生活を豊かにすることだった。そこにとって私は戦士になれるかどうかの価値しかなかった。そうなるまでに痛めつけられた分を 男に返した。二度とまともに歩けない体にしてやった。
Whoa. Damn.
けど男は喜んだ。これなら武器がなくても敵を殺せるって。どこの国の何人が死のうが生きようが、自分を含めて命というものに価値があるとは思えなかった。島へ向かう朝、男は膝をついて私に謝った。そして泣きながら懇願した。帰ってきてくれと。私を自分の娘だと思っていた。私には帰りを待つ父親がいる。もう全てがどうでもいいとは思わない。私はこれまでに取り返しのつかない罪を犯したと思っている。
People doing things for all their own reasons.
それが聞けてよかった。
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you would have to get back there before Eren makes it there.
そうにこの日が島の悪魔が乗り込んでくる日が来たんだね。そんなガビを
Yeah, you don't know if the Marlians would even listen to them because they don't even know.
どうせ集団で口裏を合わせてこっから逃げるつもりなんだろう。世界中のエルディア人が収容所で同じことを訴えているはずだ。全員拘束しろ。両膝をつけ。手は頭の後ろだ。さっさとやれよ。約束してくれ。帰ってくるって。
約束する。
Oh, bastard. Fucking come on. Let me see.
イエーガー派が集結してこの砦を仕切ってます。早く逃げましょう。
イエーガー派は民衆に支持され、この島の実権を握るだろう。私のような旧体制は払拭されるほかない。
何があっても俺たちが教官を守ります。
I don't know if they will purge you though.
バカ者どもが。私が何のためにしょんべん小僧どもの足毛をおとなしく受けたと思っておるのだ。して背くな。
What a badass.
せいぜいお前たちが守れるものは自分の身くらいだ。だし、いつか立ち上がるべき日が来る。それまで決して自分を見失うな。
体が小村を目指したってコニーには
Yeah, he's gonna be way ahead right now.
お母さんを人間に戻すことを諦めろって言うの。
言うよ。じゃないと神の信用を得られない。あの子が頼りだ。まだどこかに潜んでる。ライナーや車力の巨人をおとなしくさせられるかどうかがかかってる。この巨人の力をめぐって争い続けた2000年の歴史を繰り返すことだ。
Yeah.
このコニーに言うよ。お母さんはひっくり返った巨人のままでもいいんじゃないかって。
アルミン、私はどうしたらいいの？エレンのことどうするの？
わからないよ。それにどうしようもないだろ。ハンジさんと兵長は殺されたかもしれないし、フロックたちが僕らにも銃口を向けるかもしれない。それに
He's feeling a lot of
兄が
pressure.
復活したかもしれない。だからもうどうしようもないエレンのことなんか考える余裕はないよ。それくらいわかるだろ。
I think it might be time for Mikasa to just try and just think like about stuff for herself. I could put in stuff, you know.
こんな無様に当たり散らしたりしなかった。
Erwin.
生き返るべきだったのは僕じゃなかった。
Bloody hell.
マフラーがない。
I wonder if the girl
あり
took
が
it.
とう、ブラウスさん。
俺はしばらくブラウスさんのところで世話になるよ。
私の本当の名前ガビっていうの。え？ガビって変。ミヤの方がいいよ。は？じゃあね、カヤ。さよなら、ガビ。
ロックやめろ。ウだ。落ち着けよ、ジャン。
Fucking hell, Flock.
一体誰がお前にお山の大将を気取ってほしいと頼んだ。
よく聞いてくれたな、ジャン。みんな聞いてくれ。俺は10ヶ月前エレンから今回の計画を聞いた。ジークを利用し始祖の力をエレンが掌握する計画だ。そしてお前たちは故郷をも失う。 地ならしによって全ては巨大な足跡の下だ。お前たち義勇兵がこの島に来た動機である故郷の復興の夢も失う。
Why do I feel like he's
それでも
making the...
ふざけるなクソ野郎。誰がお前なんかに。
Jesus. Why does it feel like when
考える時間を
when
与えよう。
Flock says it, it's like he's making it sound way worse than it is. Like he's like it's like Flock has some kind of like maniacal fucking.
俺はエレンの代弁者だ。もうお前らは戦わなくていい。好きに生きていい。なあじゃん。お前は憲兵になって内地で快適に暮らしたかったんだろ。
That was a long time ago.
お前は英雄の一人なんだから。
コニーさん、助けてもらってありがたいんですが、ずっと北に進んでますよ。
He woke up.
ほら、夕日があっちに。
Oh man.
危険な南から離れた方が。俺は兵士になった。
Jesus. If he finds out, he.
みんなを守る立派な兵士になっておくれ。
もう少しだけ待っててくれ、母ちゃん。俺は兵士になって。
Oh man.
ありがとうございます、コニーさん。ミさんがいい人でよかった。でも、なんとかして。
Oh god. It's gonna be a hell of a dilemma, man. Next episode.
では覚えてる。でも、その後一体何があったんだ。それに、コニーさん、俺はどこかで見たことある気がするんだけど。
It'll have been from when Mia had the Jaw Titan.
あの進路と速度から考えると撤退戦はあのままマーレに戻るようですね。地ならしの発動を見て我々マーレ軍の生存を絶望視したのでしょうか。
Good hell. Macgath is still alive? I didn't think he would be.
されるまで待つよりずっといい。
あれを止める策は何か終わりでしょうか。
ない。ただ最後までみっとも
Oh shit! Angie!
ちょっと待って。
Christ!
とりあえず食べないで。
Fuck!
には何の武器もありません。ご安心ください。あれは人畜無害の神族です。
Yes! Levi. Oh god, okay. Okay, episode 23, Sunset. Wow. Well, I don't know where to start really, because I could start with anything really. There wasn't anything that is like so concerning for things going forward. I mean, everything's concerning going forward really, but I mean, we'll start with Annie, I guess, because obviously she's the big sort of character that's came back, and it was Hitch who ended up actually being with Annie there, which kind of sucks in a way, because I was hoping that after the end of last episode that because Armin was the one to like, you know, like think, oh shit, that means that Annie must be back, that he would, you know, and then that would have been an interesting conversation. But I think we'll just have to wait for that for a future episode, because it's bound to happen, right? It has to come back at some point. And judging by the fact that the Zeppelins are now leaving, I don't know. I'm going to hazard a guess and say that they made it, because otherwise it's just going to be a thing of, well, Annie's just stuck on the island, and that whole thing of her getting escorted by Hitch and whatnot would have just been pretty much for nothing if she never made it there. So I'm going to hazard a guess and say that she did actually manage to get on it, because it's the only way that they're going to get there before the rumbling turns up, right? Now, the thing that's up in the air is that Annie's father actually could have taken a bullet there and died. But I think what is kind of to note is the fact that, you know, even with his sort of like gammy leg that was down to Annie in the first place, that, you know, he's still clearly never gave up those sort of martial arts, that I mean, I don't know, he might be fine, but I don't know how many soldiers were there with guns, because he can get one, that's fair enough, but if he does have a fucked up leg where he can't really walk, how is he You know, he's not going to be able to take out like 3 of them. I think I saw 3 with guns. But who knows what happened, because it literally cut when we heard the bullets. So anything could have happened. He could have taken out one and then the rest of them could have charged the other guards. Things like that could have happened. But the thing is that because they are set up in that sort of, you know, like they've got like, you know, towers and things. I just feel like it's like the Eldians there don't really have much of a choice. So it could be a case of like, well, Annie's just going to get there and just he's going to be dead anyway. I mean, it's going to be worse than like. It could be a good setup for like Annie and her character, as in like who she cares about going forward. Because remember, like I mean, we got basically her whole backstory here and the reason, like, you know, why she felt the way that she did, and that originally she cared about absolutely no one, not even her own life. She had absolutely no regard for any of it until the day of leaving, where that changed and it only became about him, her father. So it's like if she gets there and find out that he's been shot, rather than, you know, as opposed to the other thing that would have happened, which was the rumbling came and he would have been trampled, basically squished. I mean, even just to say squished sounds not like, because it's a massive just. I mean, when you say they're going to literally flatten that, like, it's like I generally believe it. Like, you know, flatten the world. But that's the thing, is like, maybe that is the reason. Like, if she gets there and she finds out that he's actually been shot by a Marlian instead, then it could turn her more to, you know, to other things that she cares about. You know, like before, even though that. I mean, because this is the thing, like, it's kind of like a betrayal on both sides between them. Obviously, she got set up by the likes of, like, Armin and whatnot, but I don't. Maybe she does. Maybe she does find sort of, like, that she does actually care for those people. Like, yeah, and... But yeah, I don't know. I also don't know if Hitch... I don't know. I doubt Hitch is going to go with her. That would be mad if Hitch went... with her across the ocean to Mali or whatever, because I know, like, you know, they were kind of all right friends, but like, I mean, it isn't gonna happen, is it? But you know, we'll wait and see. I did like the fact that she, you know, even though she has actually weakened in there, that I mean, this is the thing, is like, weak as in, because I wonder if she's like locked in there, is it just weak from the fact that she's been in there a long time, or is it actually weak in the fact that because she was literally like in a full-on battle before she hardened, she's actually still like almost in that state? That because I almost liken it to, if she has been hardened in there, she likened it as a dream almost, right? But every time else it was just like it was like almost like blackness. So there was like kind of consciousness there, but I wonder if it's almost similarly to like the coordinate in a way, where it's like time is instant, and, you know, and also like time, because it's all in the same sort of vein, isn't it? Like, time stands still there, but it also goes. So it's kind of like, I wonder if it's somewhat similar to that regard. As like, to her, almost it's like time was passing, but in terms of her body, nothing really changed. So therefore, like, it's almost as if like her body is still in that state as it was when she hardened, as to when she came out. It could be either or. It could be the fact that just because she's been in there a long time, that's what it is, and also the you know, the fact that, you know, her body still thinks it's literally just come off the back of that battle with Eren all the way back in season 1. But yeah, so she was weak. They weren't going to play the risk of her transforming, even though she was weak. And they didn't really, like, I just, you didn't really get the feeling that they really wanted to fight each other anyway. But I did like the fact that Annie still has her head screwed on, and she played that sort of, like, that trick of leading the footprints one way and then hiding behind the, the door. Because, yeah, it would make sense, like, why would she come out of the basement to hide in a room when she could have just walked on, I guess she would have had to at some point, like, she had to have, her probably first thought was to get some kind of disguise, really. So she was, attempting to lead someone in. It just happened it was Hitch. But yeah. So yeah, she was hearing Armin and Hitch, and that was the only two that she ever mentioned. So I could be a bit going far-fetched with this idea that, is it because those are two people that she cares about, or is it just for the fact of, like, basically the only people who ever really came to see her were Hitch and Annie, and therefore those are the only two that she ever heard because they were that close? Because it could be just as simple as that, I guess. Because I don't think there would be any reason for anyone else to really go see her. Yeah, I don't think so. So yeah, maybe it is just as simple as this. They were close enough and talking to her. So, yeah. Yeah, so then we got a backstory. So she was abandoned as a baby. And that actually came from the fact that her parents, one of them was actually an Eldian, and the other a Malian. So that was, that was new information. And then obviously she got picked up by her current father, which I don't know. We might have got his name at some point, but he picked him up because apparently he was. I think this was said, like, he was actually subject to the same thing, like he was abandoned as well for the same reason. I think that's what it said, but correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah. And yeah, and then we obviously got that, like, the whole thing of him training Annie and everything like that, and it's interesting, obviously, knowing all of this now, because the whole, like, sort of little tidbits that we did get with her, and her memories all the way back in, like, season 1, is, like, so vague that you're kind of like, God, what the fuck is going on here? Like, why is it that she is so, like, you know what I mean? Like, she... Because the way that her story was lining up was almost the fact that, like, she was, not dying, like, she didn't want to die kind of, like, out of spite. But then, like, when it looked like Eren was going to kill her, like, it immediately, like, shot back to, like... And I think the one that we saw was, please come home kind of thing, like that one. But then that's all you get. And so you're kind of stuck there thinking, like, wait a minute, what does that mean? Like, I thought she didn't like this father, right? I thought she didn't like like her father and whatnot, and then it turns, and then you never get anything until now. So it's been a long time coming, but the idea was that because obviously he was the one that took her in, but basically didn't really raise her as a father would, but instead basically spent all the time, like, basically hardening her up, like making her tough to basically live in a world that is fucked. And so that she doesn't need to fight with a weapon, which is, it's commendable in that regard, but you can understand why, like, the idea, like, she was basically bred to be a weapon herself, in which case she has no emotion, and it's the reason why, and therefore she never had any real, she didn't have any regard for life and everything because of that, including her own. She was never brought up to be that way inclined, like, she never really learned to love anyone or anything, so she wasn't really taught that way of life, so it makes sense. But then it's like, when all of that, I guess, if you grow up for that amount of time with a parent or something that doesn't give you that sort of parental love in that way, you just see them as all this, like, almost as just like somebody who's forcing you to do this thing daily. You never see any change in the way that they act, and then all of a sudden he changes, he gets on his hands and knees and he begs and he cries, and it's like it's obviously it's hit her hard, and therefore that's become basically her only real, like, thing, like, basically her reason for living. So it totally, it makes sense. And I'll be honest, like, I think he probably did get shot and died there, because I think that's probably Annie's into the world, like, now. Like, that's her sort of... That's where her character goes. Because that's the thing, is like, if it was just as simple as her leaving to get back to her father, and her father was alive and everything, and here comes the rumbling, it's kind of like, well, that would kind of be the end of her story, really, wouldn't it? Because I'd imagine she'd get back there, she'd probably turn into the female Titan, grab her father, and leg it the fuck out of there before the rumbling got there, right? Like, that's how I'd think it would. And then, because Annie doesn't really have any, like, regard for anybody else, it would just be like they would just go live on their own somewhere, and that would be that. But I think the idea that if she's, like, if he's been killed off, then I think it kind of forces Annie in a direction to be kind of directly involved with the current story and not just kind of go off into the wilderness and never to be seen again. Because Armin, I mean, that whole thing, yeah, with Armin is interesting because we've never really seen him lose. Like, I mean, we've seen him lose sort of control desperately in the past, where, like, he's kind of, you know, but, like, he's really stood up anyway since he was chosen over Erwin to inherit the Colossal Titan and whatnot, right? And I think this is, like, the first time where we've truly seen it, like, it's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Because there's so much shit going on, and he can only handle certain things at a certain, like, you know, so much at once. And you've got the whole thing of, like, do we truly know what Eren's doing? Like, why is he hiding it from us and everything? But then you've heard the reasons why he's doing it, and then it's like, well, you know, it's all this, like, internal conflict going on in his head mentally of shit going on, and now he's got to think about, you know, what's going on with the fucking, you know, the, like, you know, are Hanji and Levi still alive? Connie's fucked off with Falco, I've got to go after him. Like, there's so much shit that almost, like, everyone's, like, looking to him. And Mikasa, you know, she's always been, like, a kind of a character to just kind of follow around and not really have her own desire on things. I feel like the only time she's, like, even, like, the only time she's ever really inclined to go out and do stuff herself, even then it's always for Eren. So it's not like, you know, her basically asking, like, what should I do? And it's like Armin's got all this stuff that he's thinking about that he has to do and everything, and how does he go about it and whatnot? And then he just hears Mikasa say, well, what do I do? And it's like, I don't know. Like almost like, what do you want from me? Like, it's really kind of getting to him. And the fact that he literally says that, like, I was the wrong choice. He chose the wrong person. Should have brought Erwin back. Is it's crazy. And it's again, it's another one of those times where I remember saying this sometime, like, you know, earlier in this season, like in the first half of season 4 at some point, like, thinking, like, imagine if Erwin was here, like, what would we be think, what would we be doing, you know, like, because Erwin was so switched on in terms of, like, leadership and everything like that. It would just be interesting to see what his take on the current world would be. But, you know, the thing is, I don't think Armin has been told or anything in regards to when Erwin, like, you know, he was ready to go out. You know, he was ready to kind of leave it. So I don't know, man. What else? Yeah, so Shardis, when he did actually get kicked the living shit out of, those episodes, like, when was it? Like, about, it was just at the back end of the first half, right? Like episode 14 or something like that. It was probably around there. But the reason why he actually allowed it to he basically allowed it to happen. He allowed himself to get kicked the living shit out of because he wanted, he thought that the cadets could only really look out for themselves, and if they would ever go against the Jaegerists, then they would basically just, you know, be purged, as he likes to put it. But I mean, when he said that those people, like the sort of like the old guard or whatever, would basically be purged, I was thinking, I don't know if they would. But then looking at the way that Flock is kind of acting, it makes me think that maybe he's right. Because it's kind of like, you know, the way that Flock is kind of acting is maniacal to me. Like, it just seems like he's an absolute maniac. And the way that he's sort of, I don't know, like, it seems to me like he's enjoying what he's doing, you know, which isn't right, because I don't know. It seems like the way that he is telling, like, this, like, I don't know. He's leading this whole thing, like, almost like he's the one that, like, has the power. You know what I mean? Because Aaron's basically away doing his own thing now. It's kind of like, well, Flock's now in charge. And he's enjoying the whole thing. But the way that he's putting it across seems like it's way worse than what actually should be happening. You know? Like, I mean, it's not good what Aaron's doing anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's basically just genocide of the whole world. I get that. But it's like, what is going on at home is a whole different thing. Because the thing is, Paradise is like, that's the one place in the world that Eren is not fucking, he's not destroying, right? So whatever happens there internally matters. So I think, like, when you have this, you know, this guy with a fucking, like, with Flock, with almost like, that seemingly got this, like, complex over people that he wants to basically, you know, put it out there that he's in charge. It's like, you know, he doesn't, I don't know, man. He's kind of, it's kind of a psychopath, I think. I think it seems to me like he's enjoying it way too much. So I can only gauge that going forward, we're looking at a rebellion or a civil war really cropping up here. I know that there was a story, like, or like there was, when we were talking about, you know, what happened with the aliens like so many years ago, from like the Malian side or whatever, there was it was either that or it was when Eren found his dad's notes. But there was a whole thing with like a civil war that broke out, right, at some point. And when like some of the aliens actually started to work for the Malian side and whatnot, and then it like kind of like broke out. It just feels like, you know, it's somewhat going to be a similar thing, I feel like, on Paradis, because I think that's the way that, you know, the story goes. If you remember when I talked about how this idea of once Eren was away, I don't know what happens in the story past this point, because I couldn't really think of, like, well, what could happen other than the fact of, like, well, there has to be something that gives in terms of they're not going to allow Eren to just basically kill off the whole world. So I feel like there could be, you know, in a struggle here. I mean, you're already seeing it mostly with Jean, I think, because obviously he was there and witnessed Flock do his thing, and Flock was like, "No, this, don't you understand? Like, this is it. Like, you don't have to fight anymore. You know what I mean? You're basically, you're one of the heroes. You can just, you know, you can do what you always really wanted to do, and that was live life peacefully on the inside." But as I said, like, he's a changed guy from then on. But you could see, like, in his eyes, like, he was just like, fuck, like, this is it, it's over. Like, I can, you know. But I guess there's always going to be that sort of, like, PTSD thing there, and is it really over? Is it really? It's never going to be over till it's over. And so, for that reason, I feel like even though Jean is really conflicted, I don't see Jean going to that point. I don't see Jean just giving it all up and saying, yep, it's over, I can now just chill and relax. There was also a look that Onyankopon gave him, and I can't read it, what it means. I can't read what his look means, if it's like a look of kind of, because it was a pretty blank look that he gave him. And I guess if you're looking at it as like Onyankopon almost being like, I don't know, because I don't know if Onyankopon would be like that, but like, you know, of acceptance. I don't think that's the case, because I guess you could read it from two things, right? You could read it as Jean reading Onyankopon's face, or Onyankopon reacting to Jean's face. What is it that it's entailing there? I'm almost looking at it as Onyankopon trying to give Jean a message, basically saying like, no, that's not the way this goes. Like, you don't, that's not the way you are now, you don't rest. As opposed to like Jean, because that's the other thing, is like, if Jean's looking at Onyankopon and thinking like he's given up the idea and accepted the whole thing that Eren's going to destroy the rest of the world, and therefore his homeland and his family and everything like that are going to die along with it. I don't know. I don't think. But then it could be a thing of like just kind of act lay low, and then when the time comes, because that's the other thing. Shardis basically said that. He said like, you just go along with it, you fit in, and then when the time comes, then you can act out. But so like, it's kind of Shardis, he's laying a kind of a seed there that's like, this isn't gonna continue, But it's like this idea that, because I can't. This is the reason why, like, I'm so. Because I know what Eren's doing is bad, but I've always said, like, I can't. Like, the alternative is what? They wait to get trampled themselves. And it's like, well, there isn't really a choice then. But then you see Flock, the way that he's acting. He's almost like Flock is acting and trying to like lead this whole thing with an iron fist. And I can't imagine Eren enjoying the idea of that. Like, liking that, So I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, so there was the fucking the thing at the end, in the basically the credits, where we actually saw Connie, who was riding along with Falco, and Falco has actually woken up now. So yeah, this is where sort of Connie's inner conflict comes in as well, because there's bound to be that moment, right, where, because Falco is alive and talking to him and everything, and he's already thanked him now, and it's already clicked, like, that whole thing of, like, if he's with him long enough, talking things through and whatnot, it's going to be harder and harder for Connie to bring himself to do it. But you can understand why he wants to do it. But it's like, it's not going to get there. There's no way Connie's mother is becoming the Jaw Titan. It's not going to happen. And if it does, well, fuck. That would probably be the biggest shock ever. Because what? I just don't see it. So, there's going to be that, obviously, conflict that Connie's going to have to come to terms with. We know that Armin's chasing him down now. So, that's the thing, is like, what I think is going to happen is the sort of inner conflict that Connie's going to have with himself about whether or not he can do it is going to hold him up long enough for Armin to get there. And then from then on, it's like, because I don't know, would Connie die? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know, man. It could be, but because this is the thing, is like, Falco's back now, and he can turn into the Jaw Titan as long as he's injured, right? So there's things that can happen where he can turn into the Jaw Titan before he gets eaten or whatever. And Connie being that close, it could turn bad, but we'll have to see. Falco basically had said, like, in his sort of inner monologue, that he had seen him before. So that obviously has to be through Emiya's memories from when she had the Jaw Titan. And that's the thing, is like, I think that's where the internal conflict will start, because if they start talking to each other and Falco starts bringing up memories of, that he has, that's coming through from when Emiya was the Jaw Titan and whatnot, like, that's going to be what'll hold him up, I think. So yeah, yeah, interesting. Other than that, I think that's pretty much kind of like all I've got. Yeah, people did die from the wall, and then you obviously had people that were, you know, basically calling out, basically saying, no, Erin's the one that's killed, like, you know, like my son or my family, whatever. But it's like it's again, it's that thing. You had the, you know, the one guy basically coming out and saying, well, the alternative was, you know, that they would end up dying anyway because the rest of the world would come here and destroy us. And again, it's that thing of basically no choice. The best alternative for them. That's the thing, is that's why the inner conflict is so hard for these characters, because the dilemma is, you know, it's like it's a non-choice. I mean, I guess it could be a choice if you're willing to just die for it, but like, you get what I mean. Genocide of the entire world, or we get killed. That's the choice. And so, looking from the Paradisians, the better alternative is what Eren is doing, you know. And really, I mean, I guess you could never dictate like when things were going to happen. And obviously, Eren was keeping things under wraps, so he couldn't warn people ahead of time, like, you know. And the shit that went down, he could never warn people anyway. So, you know, it's shit that basically happened like right then. Things had to be done like in a space of time that was, you can't get people evacuated away from the walls enough to save everybody. So, you know, it was basically an impossible situation, you know. But I did like that, like, you know, Hitch was there. She was at the like, because she's always been that character, like, yeah, all the way back in, like, after that fight between Eren and Annie, she was like the one there that was basically her job, you know. And things that, like, haven't changed, and you can tell that, like, just like, she's sick of it, like, it never ends. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think that Gabby, I think obviously, you know, she was obviously on the Zeppelin as well, and I think obviously Annie being there. So, you know, I can imagine Annie and Gabby meeting up, probably on the same Zeppelin or whatnot, and then we'll get like sort of their story when they get back, and whatnot. But oh no, she didn't, man. What am I talking about? Of course, Gabby didn't. She's fucking with Armin, man, isn't she? Sorry, my bad. I'm an idiot. I don't know why I thought that. Why did I think that Gabby? No, of course not. My bad. I'm an idiot. So yeah, anyway, that is all I've got. So thank you everyone for watching. In the description below I have links to certain things. One of them is the Discord, so you can get yourself over there if you wish. And I also have a Patreon page as well, so if you do want to support me on Patreon, that'd be very much appreciated. There is a bunch of different tiers and rewards there, like early access, gives you access to shows a week early. There's the full length tier, which gives you access to full length reactions to all the shows I do. Then there is the exclusive tier, which gives you access to the full length movie reactions and everything that I do when I react to movies. Okay, so if you want my full length reactions to movies, that's the one for you. But that is all I've got. So thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.